Welcome to Madlit Musings, the podcast where you get to eavesdrop on your favorite authors without getting caught. I've been stoked to have authors like Angela Hunt, Bill Myers, Nicole Deese, Tessa Afshar, comedian Bob Smiley, and more on the show, and this year I have another great lineup of storytellers and truth-sayers. If you love to eavesdrop at coffee shops like I do, this is the podcast for you. It's where we get real, we get tough, we laugh, and we might even cry. It's where we meet authors on a different level, where every story and podcast episode has its own heartbeat. So hang out with me today. I'm Jaime Jo Wright, your host at Madlit Musings. This is your podcast for real chats with real authors about real life. Today's episode was brought to you by Baker Publishing Group, with Revell and Bethany House Publishing as divisions. We're super excited to be sponsored by Baker Publishing Group and to bring you their fabulous authors and their fabulous lineup for 2025. Be sure to check them out at bakerpublishinggroup.com and also check out their online bookstore at bakerbookhouse.com. Hi, everyone. It is Jaime Jo Wright here at Madlit Musings. And as usual, I start the podcast laughing because I've already been chit-chatting with our guest today, and I think we've pretty much covered everything from baked potatoes to modern theology. And I have with me today Lynn Blackburn. Welcome, Lynn, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Also, craving a baked potato. But anyway.
I know, right? Right. I have a baked potato in the oven as we speak, and pretty soon I'm going to start smelling it and want to end this podcast. So let's talk really fast.
Okay, let's do it.
Well, for those of you who don't know who Lynn Blackburn is, shame on you. No, I'm just kidding. No shame. But you should know who she is. She's always wanted to be a spy, according to your bio. And now you spy on the world from the safety of your couch in your pajamas. But you are
for everyone.
Well, it is. It's safer that way.
I
Although you did just mention
worst.
that you learned. Yeah, what? You would have been what?
I would have been the worst spy. Oh, my word.
I don't know. You said you were reading about nuclear submarines when you were in 6th grade. So,
well, I mean, Tom Clancy, it's very detailed. I feel like I'm not sure if you put me in a submarine. I think I might, I wouldn't be completely clueless. I wouldn't be completely clueless.
You could become the female Jack Ryan.
There's so many issues there. The
There
main
really
one
are.
being that I am truly the world's biggest chicken. I don't know why I think I would have made a good spy because I'm such a weenie. I mean, it would be a disaster. I've been like, no.
No. So you're more of a spy on a page now. You just use words.
It's best for me to just put other people in that position and
yeah.
From this truly the safety and comfort of my couch because.
Yeah, it's funny when you're a kid, the perception you do have of yourself, though, because this is horrible. I thought I would make a fabulous con artist. Like, you wanted to be a spy, I was going to be a con artist because I was convinced that I could manipulate people beyond the talent of the most manipulative manipulator. Say that fast 3 times. And I thought I could be a con artist. And I even looked into it, but there weren't any degree programs at Harvard for that. So I became a writer instead.
It does make your career choice have a little, a different flavor there.
I do manipulate people. I manipulate people every day on the page.
On the page, absolutely.
Right. It's a safe place. You can't get arrested there. Well, not yet anyway.
At least not yet. Not yet.
Anyway, back to introducing who Lynn Blackburn is. You're also a 2021 Christie Award finalist. By the end of this podcast, I will have fully introduced you as a successful author in the suspense thriller genre through Revell Publishing and maybe other publishers that I just didn't do enough research on, because I'm one of those people, I just hop on a podcast and go, oh, shoot, I should have read the bio closer.
So much more fun.
I listen to these podcasts and I'm like, wow, they're so smooth and elegant and professional. And then there's Jaime Jo Wright. But I was going to ask you. It is. I was going to ask you, though, how many books have you written? Do you know?
Do novellas count? Do
Oh
we
yeah,
count novellas as a book?
always count novellas. Always.
So I wrote 2 for Love Inspired Suspense. Those were my first
Mm-hmm.
2.
Okay.
And then let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. So I've written Break My Fall will be my 8th full-length novel with Ravel.
Okay.
So, but the Love Inspired books, that makes that 10. And then I have 1, 2, 3 novellas out.
Okay.
So I guess 13.
Ooh, this is going to be your lucky 13.
Oh, I
Break
guess
My
it is.
Fall is your lucky
Break My
13.
Fall. Oh, I didn't think about that.
There you go. There's so
Marketing
much
note.
you can do with
Okay.
that now, right? Right?
I know. I'm gonna
it's
have
your
to
lucky
make
13.
lucky 13. Who knew? So yeah. And that of course doesn't
Yeah.
count the one that I wrote and thought was Chef's Kiss that has never seen the light of day because it's still in a drawer because it was a
That's a
disaster.
travesty. Yeah.
But
I think you
I
should
thought it was
release
great.
it in episodes
There
so
you
that we can all, like, the unedited
Oh.
version of Lynn
Listen,
Blackburn's
the
first novel.
original I didn't understand about POV. Didn't understand that at all because I read lots of I read all over the place. And so I didn't really, the idea of third person POV was completely foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I did learn about POV, I thought I had fixed it, but I think originally there were maybe 20 different point of view characters because the guidance says things like that you should write from the point of view of the character who has the most to lose or
Right.
the most going on in the scene. So that's what I did. And then the lovely Diane Mills at my first writing conference was like, okay, I had paid for a critique and she was like, so really for a romance novel, you need 2 points of view. And I was just like,
not 20?
How do I do that? Because I've got all these other things going on. And I mean, I had full scenes where neither the hero or the heroine were in the scene because the story, because other people were.
Folks, she even had the point of view of the nuclear warhead.
Boy, wouldn't that be fun?
That would be an interesting
interesting point of view. So so it needed a lot of work. The story, like the guts of the story are not bad, but the execution was lacking. And so it's still sitting in a drawer.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Well, one of these days, you're going to bring it out.
I hope that maybe I would have to rewrite it, but I can actually see where it could fit potentially. So
I'm starting a campaign for a non-rewritten, non-edited release. So readers, if you want that version, please like and subscribe to my podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple iTunes. Leave a comment and be sure to share this with a friend. Wow, I even got that little thing in there.
Look at you.
All of this just to get your first manuscript published.
First manuscript out there. Whew.
You can do it. Okay, but we're not here to talk about the first manuscript.
No, we're not. We're here to talk about Lucky 13.
We are. Lucky 13 is called Break My Fall. It comes out from Ravel Publishing. Is it the second in the Gossamer?
It is. Second in Gossamer Falls.
Gossamer Falls. Okay. All right, because I have a book called Gossamer Pond.
Yes.
And I keep calling
Gossamer is a great word. Yes.
But nobody knows what it is. What does it even mean?
Well, it's like filmy and lacy.
Wispy. Fairy-like. We don't know what it means. It just sounds cool. So that
I thought it was a great description for a waterfall. You know how the water, that was where I got that from. Also,
that's good.
Also, because I Googled extensively to confirm that there was no actual Gossamer Falls in North Carolina because I didn't want it to be a real place. I wanted it to be fictional.
Right.
So,
that's good. That's good. Because you don't want people like showing up at the Gossamer Falls saloon.
No, and I have had people ask me, like, is there a real Gossamer Falls? Like, can we go visit? And I'm like,
no.
No, I'll be happy to give you a list of waterfalls that have inspired it. Right. But of course, they're all in Western North Carolina. And unfortunately, many of them are not currently accessible thanks to Helene, but they
Oh,
are
yeah.
there. So eventually you can get back to
Mm-hmm.
them. But yeah,
Not
yeah, it's
currently.
not real, but it is the second full length book. There is a novella that just
Okay.
came out in November.
Mm-hmm.
So the first book is Never Fall Again. The novella is in the Cornered collection with Natalie Walters and Lynette
Yep.
Eason. And that one would be kind of like Gossamer Falls 1.5.
Okay.
And then Break by Fall comes out in March, and it's book 2.
Okay. All right. Now, are these subsequent characters where you have to start with book 1, or?
Technically, no. I try to write them so that you can pick them up
Mm-hmm.
and read them, but I do think you're missing out if you don't, because you're going to get the spoiler alert of the couple, right? Like there's
Okay.
the
Right.
couple that gets together in book 1 is obviously going to be together, possibly married, possibly pregnant in by the time you get to book 2 or book 3. So if that is truly, I don't really consider that a
It's not
spoiler.
really a spoiler, though.
I
I mean,
mean,
if you
it's
have
a
a
romance
romance
novel.
novel,
What did you think was going to happen?
it's not Romeo and Juliet.
Right. Like this is not a tragedy. I don't kill
Okay.
off my main characters. Um, so I don't know that that's a true spoiler, but there's a little bit of that. My second book, I always feel like you could still probably read that one out of order. By the time you get to the third book, it's a little trickier because my third book
Okay.
couples always have so much history
Yeah.
that's available to the reader in the first few books that
Right.
those are much harder to write as a true standalone. But the
Yeah.
storyline and the plot does all
Mm-hmm.
take place in that book and can be
Okay.
picked up and read from in that book
So you don't
without anything
have like
else.
a recurring villain that starts in book 1 and overarcs throughout the entire
No,
trilogy. Okay.
no,
Okay.
I
No.
don't.
Yeah.
So it has, I personally don't mind that in a storyline.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm reading something like that, some readers get really irate about that. They don't like it
Yeah.
because they
Well, I
feel
think
like
it's,
it's
yeah.
a ploy to make you buy the next book or whatever. And I'm like, no, I mean, if it
It's
works for
not
the
really
story, then that's great. But
I mean, they do it on TV all the time. Like you
I
have
mean, that's how we
your
watch TV
episodic
constantly. Yes.
elements,
But
but
you
then
get to
each
the
one of them
end and
has like a
Netflix gives you 15 seconds and you're like, well,
right.
hurry up. Like,
Right, right.
I
Like
don't
if
have
you ever
time.
read, I mean, if you ever watched The Mentalist, every single episode of The Mentalist was its own story, and yet Red John was like woven throughout every episode until the final season, final episode, and you culminate with the Red John.
Right.
So there's
Yeah. And
elements of
I'm
that
fine
too
with
in
that,
books.
but I
Yeah.
haven't written one like that. So,
Okay. All
so
right.
yeah.
Okay. Well, tell
So
us a little
this
bit
one is
about
more.
Gossamer Falls.
So I set Gossamer Falls in Western North Carolina. That's where I'm from originally, but I made it fictional. So it's kind of I don't ever even really say exactly where it is. I just
Okay.
roughly say it's an hour-ish from Asheville, just
Okay. Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to say where it is. It has,
Right.
there's options. And if you've ever spent any time up there, an hour is not, I probably should have made it 2 hours just because the driving time. I mean, it could be like 15
Mm-hmm.
miles, but it'll take you
Mm-hmm.
45 minutes to get there because, the curvy roads and things like
Right.
that.
Right.
And it's a small town. It's managed to be hidden away from a lot of the publicity and tourism stuff that has gone on. There's two main families, the Quinns and the Pierces, who have had a little bit of a feud, low key feud for a while.
Okay. Yep.
Um, and then the main characters in the 3 books, there are 3 cousins, a
Okay.
set of siblings and a cousin. So the first book was Cal, and the second book is Meredith. She's a dentist. You don't read many dentist books, I have to say. You don't see a lot of books where the dentist is the heroine,
No, you
but there we
don't.
have it. And
So she's not like
so,
a cop or an
nope,
EMT or
she's
a
not.
detective. Oh, she's a
She's a
dentist.
little do-gooder dentist. She
Good for
is
her.
doing charity clinics further up in the mountains. And she has a mobile dental van, which I did research can exist. She's got like a Sprinter van that's been converted into like a
Really?
one-seat little dental van. And she goes up into the
Cool.
mountains and does dental clinics for the underserved populations. And
Mhm.
of course, then she gets herself mixed up with the criminal element because she's
Inevitably.
trying to do good.
Right.
And at that point,
Does she pull a tooth of a criminal? She pulls a
no,
criminal's
but
tooth,
that would have been
and
fun.
inside the filling is not a filling. It's a capsule of arsenic or some fast-acting poison, which would not be arsenic, by the way, because I have
No, it
researched
wouldn't
that.
be.
Anyway, I'm going off. That's not in your book. Go ahead.
No, it's really not, but it would have been fun. We should do a series. Jaime Jo rewrites, and you could
Oh, there you
rewrite
go.
little plot points.
My
No,
gosh, that would be
but
hilarious.
now I'm off over here thinking about. Okay,
Oh, I know,
so
right?
she gets herself in trouble, and there's issues with the criminal elements in different counties. But the sheriff of Gossamer Falls, the police chief of Gossamer Falls, is trying to protect her. And of course, he's very fond of her, but he's got a past. He's got issues. He doesn't want to fall in love. And so, of course, they're at cross purposes, and it takes him a while to get their act together. But
Mm-hmm.
in the meantime, he's got to try to keep her alive because he is concerned that she has really kicked the hornet's nest, and she has. So it's a lot of, there really truly is an alarming amount of, meth, but also fentanyl drugs in.
I'm sorry. You're taking enough pauses between your words. There's an alarming amount of meth and fentanyl. And now this podcast has been completely marked by the DEA. Like, I think I see them outside my door
They're
right
outside.
now.
They're
Okay.
coming for you.
All right, continue.
Yeah, but
Let's clarify.
no kidding. In
The
Western North
books do
Carolina,
not come with a pre-order bonus of meth. We're just saying there are no packets of meth coming with the pre-order.
none of that.
Okay.
But there are actual issues in the real, for real Western North Carolina
Yes.
that drove some of that logic.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that, anybody, there was that guy a few years ago, he hid out in the mountains for like 8 years. You really can hide there. Oh, yeah. There was
8
a
years?
criminal. The FBI was looking for him. I'm wanting to say it was like 8 years. I need to look up what his actual name was. But it's very remote. And if you really want to hide, there's ways to do it. And so the criminal element has discovered the mountains of North Carolina, and they're trying to use that to their advantage. So she gets herself in all kinds of trouble. And Gray, the police chief, has to... she's not a damsel in distress type. It's not that. It's more that she doesn't have any police law enforcement skills. That's not where her gifting is.
She's a torturer. Like, I mean, she can drill holes in your teeth.
Well, there is that. There is that. I do really like the idea. I didn't do it, but I would kind of have liked to have found a way for her to attack someone with a dental instrument, but it didn't work in the story. I did consider it, though. That little pick thing. And,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, those would stop me in my tracks.
Right? You're like, I'm coming at you.
Here's my meth. I will tell you where every lab is hidden in these mountains.
What do you need? Just don't come at me.
Do not touch my teeth. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's an interesting, and I don't think I've ever read a book where the heroine is a dentist.
No.
So,
not to mention trying to explain your book with Jaime Jo Wright's commentary. I mean, I should apologize. I'm not sure anyone's going to have an accurate representation of your novel by the time this is over.
This way. Oh my goodness. Well, because don't you agree? People will say, "Can you tell me about your book?" And Lord. You're like, "Oh, I hate that question," because no matter how hard you try, at least for me, I always feel like it sounds like the dumbest thing ever. Because you wrote 90,000 words to tell this story, and now you're trying to explain it in a 30-second soundbite.
Right.
And you can't possibly cover everything and all the nuances and the humor and the things that make it work. And it's always hard. But But yours you're making it a lot more fun. So it's good. It's all good.
I just get us in trouble with the government, but that's okay.
Well, but
you know.
listen, my search history is a hot mess. So, I mean, if they aren't coming for me, they're
Oh my
whatever. They're
goodness.
missing an
Yes.
opportunity.
Yes. I've also learned that with ChatGPT now, that makes for good, like a good research tool, but you have to be careful how you put in your questions. You have to clarify that you're a writer
Oh, yes.
looking for
Yes.
answers. Otherwise, I have literally been given 800 numbers for mental health support, and I have been scolded by AI that we don't hurt people. We value human life. I'm like, oh, come on. I need to know how to build a bomb. Come on.
Well, chat, getting
I
all
know.
hoity-toity. I
Getting up
did
on,
have Facebook do that to me one time,
did it? Yeah.
where it sent me um, links to some mental health hotlines because of something I had posted.
Mm-hmm.
It was a quote from a book, and then and I was just like, well, that's not a. I mean, that's fine, but
I'm
you've
fine.
got a little bit of a breakdown here. I don't. That's not what I need right now.
Pun intended. Breakdown. Pun intended. Sorry. I don't know what we're
Yes,
here to talk about today. I mean, we're just kind of like,
it's all
whatever.
good.
But
It's all
your
good.
book sounds great.
I don't know. I kind of wish I could have written your version. That sounds even more fun. Arsenic in a
Oh,
tooth. Ugh. I know.
we got to come up with a different poison though, because arsenic's not going to take you out fast enough. I mean, and I don't think
Well,
you can have enough in a tooth to really take you out.
what's the one that is usually in there? Cyanide.
There you
That's the
go.
one that has the
There you
break
go.
the one
Yes,
that they bite down and
that's
die.
the one that they bite down and die, and then they
Yeah.
foam. I
Hmm.
want to know: do you really foam at the mouth, or is that just a Hollywood thing?
How can we find out? If we ask ChatGPT, we're gonna go to jail. So
I think we already are. I think we're past
okay,
that, so maybe we
fair
should
enough.
ask ChatGPT. But anyway, it's kind of funny though, how writers sort of get a free pass for all this research stuff that we do. It's a
It
little
does.
scary.
I have had. Have you had it? I was talking to Lynette Eason one time in
Mm-hmm.
a public place about a book
Mm-hmm.
plot,
Mm-hmm.
and we did actually have to look at the people and clarify that we were
Yes.
writing a book
Yes.
because we were getting some serious side eye.
Right.
And I was like, oh dear, they don't know.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, we're not actually killing anybody, nor have we
Right.
killed
Right.
anybody
Right. Well, it's
in real
actually, I
life.
mean, frankly, if I take this on a more serious note, it is actually a good thing to clarify, especially in
It
public,
is,
because
yes.
it
And
does sound sometimes like we are
oh,
on the low scale of evil, or
well,
no,
when
the
you're
high
saying
scale of
things
evil.
like,
I don't
I
even
need to
know.
figure out how to harm him in a way that sends him to the hospital but doesn't kill him.
It sounds
And
like
you
you're
overhear
an
this in
abused wife
public.
plotting revenge.
Right? And you
Right.
overhear this in
Yeah.
public and Good
Mm-hmm.
Samaritan laws and such, you probably should make sure people understand you're not actually doing this to
Well,
anybody.
and I don't know if you found this with your kids though, because we have the weirdest family dinner conversations, and sometimes it has to do with my research, or I'm throwing out flippant, violent concepts without thinking about it because it's fiction in my head. And then you have your children who are so accustomed to that, but they don't understand timing. I'm not sure I understand timing. Let's just be frank. But they don't understand time, place and time for those types of jokes. And then all of a sudden you hear your child from across the room threatening violence. And you're like, no! It's like this slow motion moment as mother launches across the room to
Run.
silence her child. That's not appropriate conversation. And they look at you and they're like, you duplistic hypocrite. Like, you're such a hypocrite, Mom. We actually had to sit down and have a conversation with our family. My husband was like, okay, here at home, if you see a bag on the side of the road and it's black, you can talk all you want about dismembered body parts and somebody tossing the body into the ditch. But if you're in the youth group church van and you see one, how about we just go, oh, someone's garbage fell off the back of their pickup truck, and leave it at that.
We'll just leave it there. Yeah.
And we'll just leave it there. Yeah.
Yeah, that seems, but it's every family dynamic is different. My sister has she's currently getting her PhD in nursing,
Okay.
research. Like it's the stuff she's doing blows my brain. But she has been in hospice and end of life. Her master's degree is
Oh,
in palliative care. And
okay.
so, how just to stay sane, sometimes
Yeah.
you have to not make fun, but the humor can go
Right.
a little dark. In
Mm-hmm.
Some people
Mm-hmm.
might find it a little dark. And it isn't, it's a coping, and we know, law enforcement officers do this, first responders do this. It's a coping
Right.
mechanism because they see so much.
Yeah.
And so there are things. And then my dad was a pastor. I've been going to funerals for as long as I can remember. Like the concept of
Same.
going to a funeral, I, I don't ever remember. I don't have any idea what my first funeral was. Like, that's
Yeah.
just not that.
I joke that I grew up in a funeral home, even though my parents weren't like funeral home directors. Like I just every other month.
We went to funeral. Like, that was just what you
Yeah.
did. And
Yeah.
so the things that we joke about or whatever, there is a definite sense of this only makes sense in the circle of
In this,
trust.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is in the circle of trust. And if you get out of it, you might offend somebody when there's
Right.
nothing,
Nothing
like,
intended.
there's
Yeah.
nothing intended to be that way at
Mm-hmm.
all.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't laugh about it, you really truly have to find a way to find some humor to keep
You
your
do. You
mental
do.
health stable when you're dealing with the hardest parts of
Yes.
life.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I do think that also applies even if you're writing some harder things that,
Mm-hmm.
we're not writing. I'm not knocking a Hallmark movie, but we're not writing a Hallmark movie here. We're addressing
Right.
some tough things.
Right.
And I had nightmare. I had, it's not, it's, I was dealing with some human trafficking in a book, and I was having
Mm.
nightmares about it
Mm-hmm.
because of some of the research. And so
Yeah.
you have to find ways to find some humor and levity and keep it fun just to keep
Right.
everybody stable. And I
Right.
think if you
Well,
don't, then
it's true.
that's when it's a problem, is
Well,
when
you
you
get
lose your
overwhelmed.
sense
You
of
get
humor. Yeah,
overwhelmed. Yeah. And the sad thing is, I mean, we write books for entertainment purposes, for the most part. There might be a mission involved or a thematic element, but, really fiction isn't meant to,
absolutely.
form someone's theological faith foundation, as we discussed prior to coming on this podcast. However, we still deal with a lot of deep, dark issues there's, especially in suspense or thrillers, there's abuse, there's human trafficking, there's murder, there's serial killers, there's psychotic elements, there's mental health problems. And all of that can be really dark. When I was going through some health issues, um, and I was having some seizures. The time I was writing The Curse of Misty Wayfair, which was set with an asylum. And my
Hmm.
husband doesn't read fiction at all. But because I was having these unexplained seizures, which later got explained by Lyme disease, different story. But he actually picked up the book and was reading through it because he looked at all my research books, and it was asylum, 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 mental health, mental health. And now I'm having mental health issues. I'm on the couch having seizures. I'm having massive panic attacks. And he's like, is this related? And, like I said, we find out it's,
Found the
mostly
reason. Yeah,
medical. But at the time, he's concerned because you do have to, even as a writer, be careful how much you immerse yourself in the
absolutely.
research. And there's times you just have to be like, enough's enough.
Yeah, I was at a Writers Police Academy years ago, which those are so fun. You go and
I need to go to one
they
someday. Yeah.
they have this, it's this, all these different classes for writers to go to, and they're taught by psychologists and law enforcement officers
Mm-hmm.
and all the ATF and FBI and all the different things, and you can, to try to get your fiction correct.
Yeah.
And it was my first one ever, and I hadn't even been official. I had sold a book, but it hadn't come out yet.
Okay.
And I was going to go to a class, and Angela Hunt was there. And Angela
Oh,
Hunt had gone, yes, she had gone to the class earlier.
okay.
Like, because it was
Yeah.
one of those where they offered it a few times.
Okay.
And we were talking about it at lunch, and I said something like, and of course I was in complete awe because there were authors there that I was just like, I'm just going to sit here and not say
Mm-hmm.
anything and absorb all
Mm-hmm.
the information I can from these lovely people. And something was said about that class, and she looked straight. I'm sure she doesn't remember this, but she looked straight at me and she said, "Do not go to that class." And I said, "Okay." And she goes, "I walked out. There are things you don't need in your head." And I
Mm.
said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said it was so dark that to her it
Mm.
felt oppressive just
Yeah.
listening to it. And she
Yeah.
said, you don't need that in your head. And I didn't go to the class. I was like, fair enough.
Yeah.
I want to, like you said, there's a place where you do your research so that things are realistic and
Mm-hmm.
accurate to the best of your ability. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's a point where you just have to go, no, I think that's enough of that. I don't
Yeah.
need that in my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, yes, ma'am. And just take that. And she said she didn't stay. She
Okay.
started, and then she was like, nope. And
No.
she had gotten up and left because she was just
Yeah.
like, it was too much, too dark
Yeah.
and truly too dark.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tricky. I think that's also part of what makes the books we write so wonderful because, as we discussed, I'm not trying to write a theological tome here, but
Right.
I do think that's one of the things that's great about suspense and romance for that matter,
Mm-hmm.
because my romantic suspense leans heavy on the romance, but we want we're writing stories that people can read and ultimately end with hope,
Right.
and they don't end in a dark place
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
way the world very often, sometimes you read books and you're just like, well, that was however many hours of my life that I can't get back, and now I'm
Right.
depressed.
Right.
And
Right.
that's not what we need.
Mm-mm.
And it doesn't have to
Mm-mm.
be a super overt, heavy-handed
Mm-hmm.
message, but just the idea that there is hope, and the
Right.
world is dark, but there is so much
Right.
hope and light and beauty um, through the Lord, and that is something that we do hang on to
Mm-hmm.
for our
Yeah.
own stability and that
Right.
kind of thing. So,
Right.
oh yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this was good. I
this
think
is
we
awesome.
redeemed our conversation a little bit. I was going to say though, like, did you find as you were studying dentistry that you had to stop at a certain point because it was just too much?
No, but do you know
When I
random,
got to the
interesting?
section on gingivitis.
Okay, but no
Okay.
kidding. I have several friends who are dentists, hence the dentistry thing. And
Okay.
I
Yep.
took one of my friends to lunch. We chatted for an hour and a half about everything.
Okay.
And come to find out, believe this is a real thing. There are they do a study like of the professions where people are most likely to die by suicide, and dentistry is always in the top like five. Sometimes it's the
What?
top one. Yes. And so I asked her, I said, is this true? And if so, why?
Why?
Because what is it about being a dentist that makes you so susceptible to mental health issues that it has somehow made as a profession?
Wow.
Like when they look at professions, it's this high profession of potential for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And um, she said it was true that had not found some randomly bizarre thing, that it was a true statement, that she wasn't 100% sure why. She just said
Okay.
there are several pieces here. One is that it is a customer service profession, which is hard
It
because
is.
you
Yes.
are
Yes.
dealing with people constantly, and all
Mm-hmm.
customer service professions are challenging.
Been there.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
and people are terrified of you, and so you
Oh,
you
this
know
is true.
you're trying to help them, but in general they are never happy to see you.
No.
Like, not really. There are very few
Yeah, you
people
don't
who are
probably
like,
don't get warm greetings when you meet your
not a lot. Like, there's
patients.
just not a lot of people who are excited about
Mm-mm.
going to the dentist. And then, interestingly enough, there are health issues because they use their hands so much with the fine instruments
Mm-hmm.
that it's not uncommon for them to end up needing to retire earlier because of
Oh,
health issues related to just being able to handle their instruments and things like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So there's
Interesting.
several pieces in play there, but I was
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
fascinating.
wow, I did not see that coming. So see, there's the dark
No,
side to dentistry that we didn't even,
we
you
just landed
know,
on the
we
podcast
just
title. What is the dark side
dark
of
side.
dentistry? With author Lynn Blackburn.
Wow, this is hard. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Okay.
it is yeah, I was like, I have friends who are dentists. They're wonderful people. And I was like, let's give my heroine a role that
All
you
right.
don't see a lot. And
No, that's
hopefully
cool.
it won't
I
be a
like that.
turn off for some people and they'll, give her a chance. There's no drilling involved. There's no drilling in this book.
Okay. Okay. No drilling, no fillings. There
Nope.
might be a
Mm-mm.
little plaque.
I
Maybe
mean, it could happen, but
dental floss. Hey, do your books
no
come with a free
details.
toothbrush if we pre-order?
Little, the little paper size little floss that's
Yes.
in like,
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That'd be
oh,
hilarious. And then
oh,
Janine
the
Roche
thought.
would have an opportunity to take a picture of all the little flossers that all your readers like. All they'd be like Lynn Blackburn flossers on the parking lot.
She
And
would die.
Janine, if nobody knows what we're talking about, Janine Roche
No.
is another author, and she's almost made her platform on taking pictures of the plastic dental flossers that people just throw on the
Throw
ground, like they
away.
will
Yes,
automatically just disintegrate. And it's gross. So now
it is gross.
you need to get Lynn Blackburn dental flossers.
I wonder if we could get those custom made.
I bet you could.
You
I'm
know
sure
how when you go
someone
to the
somewhere.
dentist and they
Yes.
give you a toothbrush with their name on the
Yes.
handle?
Yeah,
I
they've
bet I could
gotta have
find a way to get some
flossers.
floss. Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, for those of you listening,
On that
the book
note,
is called Break My Fall, not My Tooth. Break My Fall. It's written by Lynn Blackburn. It is published by Revell Publishing. It comes out in March of 2025, which it's 2025 when you're listening to this, but while we're talking, it's still 2024. And if you want to find out more about Gossamer Falls and Lynn's other books, where do we go? Lynn, that was a question for you.
LynnHBlackburn.com. I got there, yeah.
Oh, I keep forgetting your middle initial.
Well, the thing is, I actually did buy the domain for LynnBlackburn.com and have it
Okay.
directed to the Lynn H.
Yeah.
Blackburn because, in case it happens. But yeah, LynnHBlackburn.com. You can sign up for my newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Lynn H. Blackburn.
Perfect.
I am on Twitter or X or whatever it is, but I don't spend much time there. Mostly Facebook and Instagram are the
All
best
right.
places to find me.
All right. Sounds good. And the first book in the series is called what? Again?
Never Fall Again.
Never Fall Again. Okay.
There's going to be fall in all the words.
I was
All
just
the,
going to say, I'm getting a little bit of a glimpse into the word fall, kind of tying
yes.
things
Never
together.
Fall Again. The novella is Downfall.
Okay.
Break My Fall. I have a title for the third book, but it's not official. But there is a fall in there, so we'll
There's a
see.
fall. Okay. All right. Well, we're not going to expose the third title until it's official. So we'll leave that one as the cliffhanger
There
of
we
this
go.
episode of Madlit Musings. Thank you all for joining. This episode is sponsored by, oh my goodness, can you imagine if I actually talked like that?
I thought you were going to say this episode is sponsored by, and it's something like Colgate or
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, I'm
Crest
more of
or
I
what is the
actually use
flosser
a
one?
natural toothpaste. What is floss? Dentine? Dentine flossers?
I don't know
Dentine
what they
dental
are.
flossers?
Dental
I don't know.
flossers.
Well, let's go this way. This
Native.
episode is sponsored to you by your teeth that are asking to be brushed more than one time per day. Please floss, and don't just floss the front, floss the back, even if you have to stretch your cheek really wide to get there.
Oh, there you go. Look at you, public service announcement.
I know. This episode is also sponsored by Baker Publishing Group and Revell, a division of Baker Publishing Group. Get your books at bakerbookhouse.com, Amazon,
Oh, yeah.
Barnes and Nobles, all the others, but we love to say Baker Books, bakerbooks.com. It's a great place. Usually your least expensive place too. Not gonna
Well,
lie.
it is because the pre-orders are usually 40% off and free shipping.
Yeah, and
Can't
then
beat it.
after pre-order, it's still
It's still
30%
30%
off.
off. Yeah,
And I think
can't
it's
beat
still
it.
free shipping too. So no, you
I
can't beat
think
it.
you might have a minimum order, but you can still get free shipping. Yeah,
I
it's
think you
awesome.
have a minimum order if you're not published by Baker Publishing Group. But
Oh, so
because
your
you
Ravel book
are,
can.
yes,
Good to
yes,
know.
it just keeps getting better.
Nice. Yes,
All
definitely go
right.
to Baker Bookhouse.
Okay. This is great. Well, we are hitting the 40-minute mark,
Oh gosh,
and I'm
I
not sure what we actually talked about today. So this will be fun.
have fun on that summary.
I will. I will. I will have fun on the summary, and everybody keep your teeth clean. Don't take meth, and read Lynn's books. Thanks for joining. And that's a wrap for today here at Madlet Musings. I hope you join us again. And if you want to, be sure you like and subscribe here at your favorite podcast player or on YouTube, because you won't want to miss all the wonderful alerts that let you know when we have another conversation for you to eavesdrop on.